I'm just going to get streaming on YouTube here. Welcome, everyone. This is Nivek's first episode, so all the tech stuff will be a little bit slow, but I'm so happy you're doing this, Nivek. Nivek's regular show is going to be on Tuesdays at this time, and we are 8 p.m. Pacific time, 11 p.m. Eastern time. How's it going, Nivek?
I'm fine. I'm fine, thanks, Travis.
Yeah. Well, what has brought you here to this stage? I mean, you came uh, like the Tasmanian devil into the Pangburn Discord server, and you've been involved in hundreds of hours of intellectual discourse, talking about anything, philosophy, art, science, anything to do with life. You've really put in the hours. What have you learned through your conversational journey in the past couple of years being in the Pangburn Discord server? What are some new things you've learned, and what are some things you've noticed about people?
I I pretty much stayed on my. I pretty much kept my views. I haven't changed much, but yeah, the perspective of other people. I I'm more understanding now when it comes to their views, and because of that, I try to communicate more in a relatable way and coming across to them. So yeah, it opened up my eyes to other people's perspectives in an understanding way.
Hmm. And tell me what you want this show to be. We wrote this basic description, and you have said, "I am here to communicate with all sides of every argument. I live for the genuine exchange of ideas. Join me for an honest conversation." Um, what what does an honest conversation look like to you, and what does a dishonest conversation look like?
Well, I just want people to be true in saying why in expressing how they feel about things and why they feel the way they do. Um, I get that I get that normally people aren't always open, and I just want to more engaged in a genuine way with folks and not have to deal with it, people being too guarded. I could understand that though. Um, so I try I want to go. I'm interested in approaching people in a way in where it's relatable. In I'm not to kind of get them to understand my point of view and understand their point of view and end up communicating with each other instead of talking past each other.
Cool, man. Well, I think you've killed two birds with one stone there to some degree. Um, so Jordan Peterson's the topic today. We've entitled this episode "Jordan Christ Peterson." What do you make of the popularity of clinical psychologist and philosopher Jordan Peterson?
I think that people are conflicted in their lives, and in they're feeling people can people are feeling negative, and they're conflicted in the things that they believe versus looking for answers. I think, and I think that sometimes when you believe something, your identity is tied into it, and you want a confirmation bias. And sometimes there's I think there's a other part of you where you want to be enlightened and seeking answers to the problems in your life, and finding a way how to identify problems in your life and develop an understanding of them and overcome them. Have an idea to overcome them to make things better in your life in order to feel better and kind of like be enlightened. You're taking the weight of the burden of the problems that are on your head, the matter that you're struggling with, and you can go the route of approaching a problem that could be too beyond you and where failure is a potential. And if you fail, it could confirm the fears, the insecurities that you might have of being ignorant and irrational and struggling. And sometimes you could have somebody just tell you what you want to hear. And I'm not necessarily saying like Jordan does that or not. I'm just talking about people in general. And I think in how they're conflicted.
So a lot of people call Jordan Peterson, Nivek, a grifter. Do you think he's trying to sell a product to a certain audience? Do you think he's an honest thinker? How about let's talk a little bit about what you think about Jordan's honesty with regards to how he approaches his work.
I'm not really sure about him being a grifter. He seems complicated to say whether or not he is or not. If you're helping people and you're you're telling them things in a way that makes them feel better, I guess that could be a good thing.
Right. And then there's kind of, this other side. Okay, some people say he's disingenuous grifter. This other side, you start hearing people speak of him in this very high regard in some circles as the greatest mind humanity has ever had around. Didn't you find a website where it was something about him being?
Yeah, it's Jordanetics.
Jordanetics. I'm gonna look this up.
I'm not sure.
Do you think that's a parody thing, or?
No. It's just a. Let me see. Yeah. That's what it's called. No, it just looks like a strong follower. And he's an intelligent guy, and he sees him. I guess people see him as their champion for their cause.
And you've had a lot of conversations with, about Jordan Peterson in our Discord server. I would say you bring him up more than anyone. There's something that fascinates you about him. Is it more the level of fame that Jordan has garnered, or what is it? What really fascinates you about Jordan Peterson? Because you do talk about him a lot.
Well, the following and why that is what interests me.
Okay. Do you want to take a caller, Nivek? Why don't you try taking a caller? You can just click take next caller, and it'll line it right up. And if there's anyone that you feel as though, and I'm going to mute Nivek.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. You just kind of like faded a bit.
Oh, can you?
I was worried.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you can take however many callers you want. If you can invite them to be a speaker. First things first, though, Nivek, make me a moderator so I can help with this.
How do I do that?
Click on my icon.
Okay.
And then there'll be a make moderator.
Promote to moderator?
Yep.
Okay, I see.
Cool. Okay, that's
Okay.
great. So now you can click the take next caller button, and it looks like we have Garima next. And I'm going to mute Nivek. It's all yours, brother, but I'll be standing by.
No, you can stay in if you want.
Yeah, I'll be chilling.
Yeah, I just the interest, like what I asked the question in what brought people, what attracted people to him, and like what was the interest in what made people really be attracted to him and how he helped them. Okay, go ahead.
So for anyone who's new to the app, once you're in the next caller section, all you have to do is unmute your mic. You control your mute and unmute function. So you're up, Garima. Yeah, you just have to click on your own icon. So we'll try mic out. Garima, I'm not sure if your mic's working or not.
She can keep trying.
Sure. Yeah. So let me just do this for Nick. We'll make Mike the next caller. Mike, you're on with Nivek. Go ahead, Mike. Yep. There you go.
Can I be heard?
Yep. You're there.
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, Nivek.
Hi.
Well, I had a question with regards to what you think of Jordan Peterson. Did you see the debate he had with Michael Eric Dyson?
No.
Oh, you didn't see that?
No. I understand he's an intelligent guy. He's very intelligent. I'm just curious, like, what made you interested in following him? And
okay,
how does he does he help you, like are there answers that you're seeking, and did he in I guess like the approach that he has,
yeah. I think he has some good advice when it comes to being a life coach, things like that. He certainly has a great knowledge base for things psychological. He's certainly a philosopher. But when he explains the Bible in terms of heuristics and how that is helpful, that's something I can get on board with. I'm an agnostic myself. I'm an atheist, but I grew up Catholic, and I've always and I love the Christian community, especially the Catholic community. But I'm a cultural Christian, but I just don't see any evidence for a deity, for a God specifically of Abraham. But I do like the community. So what I like about Jordan, go ahead.
Yeah, when you said heuristics, what exactly do you mean?
Oh, it's a way of learning. Heuristics are, say you have a story in the Bible that can teach you something, either a moral or some type of a way of life. That's a heuristic. It's a way of learning.
And the way of learning that he showed you, what ways of learning
Well, just the parables in the Bible. I guess it's nothing new, but he would give examples of parables and how they can equate to morality, right and wrong, and how we can learn from them. Now, that seems simplistic, but the way Peterson puts it is quite eloquent. I don't have any specific examples at hand, but that was something that appealed to me, as well as this concept he has of what is true. So when he was debating Sam Harris, or when he had I guess, a dialectic with Sam Harris, he said, Sam Harris says that the truth is something separate from what we believe. The truth is something objectively real, despite what we think of it. And Peterson went a little further, and he said, well, the truth, and I didn't understand this, and I'm still trying to grasp it. He said that something is only really true if it's beneficial. So, and he gave an example that if we have self-driving cars, it can be true scientifically that the car is driving itself, but over the decades, if we find that there were so many crashes and people died from it, then it's no longer beneficial, and therefore it's no longer true. I can't grasp that, but I thought it was a fascinating explanation.
That was JP's answer?
Yes.
Yeah, I could kind of understand where he's coming from with that. It's kind of like just potential. You know what I mean? Nature. Whatever is potentially possible, it goes there. It's not really a thought out, planned order. Things just happen through potential in evolution, and happening or not happening, and it evolves. So there is no right or wrong. There's just potential.
Okay, gotcha. So the other thing that appealed to me was his worldview kind of overlaps a little bit with mine. I'm a conservative, but I'm a paleo-conservative. He's not quite that far. I think he's mostly right of center on most political issues. And I love his take on the hierarchy of lobsters.
I understand. What's the hierarchy of lobsters?
Well, he uses that as a rudimentary first principles kind of thing, where there is within the lobster community, if there is one, there is a natural instinctive hierarchy, and he extrapolates that to human beings.
Oh, I see. So you think that there should be like a set hierarchy?
Well, it's not that I think there should be. I think instinctively we have those when it comes to family and the wider community. But
How do you know
Nivek, I'm going to let.
How do you know when a hierarchy is just or not?
Well,
do you hold on to it, or do you change it? Like what? You get what I'm saying? Because
no, I understand. Understand. Sure. Well, I guess you could try to quantify it, but you're always going to be subjective when you do so. And I think you can only quantify it in terms of your own culture. So something quantified as good in your culture is not going to be so maybe in another culture. And I think we just have sensibilities that play out that way.
You think religion would help with the quantification? In quantifying? I mean, you get what I'm saying? Because I mean, like, you think the scientific method would do it, but he argues.
Well, it's not that religion helps or doesn't help. It's that's the context within you have to quantify whether something is good or not. If you're talking about a culture, you can't avoid it. So if you're talking about a Christian Western culture as opposed to a Islamic culture in the Middle East, the context through which you quantify something being good or bad is going to be different.
But good can be relatable, right? Depending on the
Sure.
times and the environment in change.
That
So
makes sense.
I could understand in a norm uh, being upheld through customs, but the environment that is ever changing, you could have a problem until up to that. I mean, you could not have a problem until up to that point of the change.
Well, I can appreciate that. Listen, Nivek, I'm going to hang up and let the next caller go. And I just wanted to thank Travis for having this. And I'm a big fan of the debates that he has
Oh, you're
promoted.
leaving already?
Right on, Mike. I appreciate it, man. And I'm glad you are on Callin with us, and I hope to hear more from you on this app for sure.
Will do, Travis.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, Nivek. All right, Nivek. That's cool, man. Next caller. You got it.
Hello?
You have to take next caller. Do you see the button?
Oh, sorry about that.
That's all right.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, Kevin, if you're new, you just have to tap your icon and unmute yourself. We'll give him a second. You getting it there, Kev? You might have to refresh your screen, maybe. We'll move on to... actually, can I force unmute? Let's see.
Try.
Oh. Yeah, we can try re-inviting him. There we go. How's that, Kevin? All right.
Hello?
I think Kevin's having an issue, or maybe he wasn't ready. Let's take next caller. Okay, you're up, Donald.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson. So I'm familiar with him, of course. I've watched him. Are you all familiar with, say, Camille Paglia? Camille Paglia?
No, who's that?
She's a old school feminist that all the current feminists hate. She's kind of got a libertarian view, so I disagree with her plenty, but she's very strongly pro-female, etc. You really should look her up. But they had a long discussion, and they agreed with each other on a lot of stuff, and she's pretty strong, like feminist, but in a way that's maybe old school. It's hard to explain. You have to look her up. But Jordan Peterson, is the crowd here, is the room here more like pro, anti, or just kind of neutral on the guy?
Well, I kind of wanted to hear people's view on him and how he helped them. What is it? Like, what is it with the problems that they have, that they're conflicted with in society, that JP has that JP kind of like that JP, they lean to JP in his viewpoint and have any answers for.
Well, the thing about Peterson, he rose to fame because he wouldn't use the certain pronouns, etc.
Yeah.
And that's pretty tame. But when I listen to the guy talk, for instance, I don't know enough about him to know, generally speaking, first of all, he seemed pretty cowardly when he agrees to debate people and then backs out somehow for whatever reason. I don't think he likes to be challenged, first of all.
Oh, you're not so you don't really have like a pro JP stance?
No. I think that, and I actually listened to a couple of like long lectures that he does for his class regarding psychologists and stuff. He's very brilliant, I think. Am I still here?
Yeah, I'm listening.
I think he's really smart. And like I said, he had like an hour and a half long.
He's very smart too.
But in his lane. But when he breaks out, it starts talking about things like, for instance, I'll just give you one example. When he talked about like men, women, and about when he gets out of his lane, I think he's ridiculous because he said something about And when you're really, really smart in one field, you can sound really smart and be really dumb in other fields, you know. But so he was talking about women and men and how it's just natural for men to dominate and this and that. And he's talking about divorce. And he said, well, 3/4 of divorces are started by women. And maybe it's because they're so emotional and flighty basically that they can't handle the give and take of. And he said, I'm speculating. Now again, this is kind of, and he's careful. He is about saying, no, I'm speculating here because he does have a certain like name in the field of psychology. So if he's going to go outside it, which he often likes to do, fine, great. But he'll say, "This is I'm speculating here." So he said, "I'm speculating here, but maybe we don't know why, but maybe women, initiate 3/4 of the divorces because they're just like so unable emotionally to just handle that kind of stressful give and take, and so they want everything to be nice and good because they're nurturing and wonderful that way, and that's why." And what I wanted to say to him, maybe it's because they're men are bullies, and even if they don't hit their women, let me just speculate here, Jordan, but maybe 3/4 of women initiate divorce because they don't like to be dominated with the threat or actuality of physical violence every minute of the day, So his speculations are like just as preposterous as anything. Anyway, that's just one example.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, it's not just the disagreeing with him with me. It's more of the relationship between him and the audience that I want to discuss in
He seems to like to set
the
himself up with
popularity.
radical feminists who are always going to disagree. He's done his homework. He's Googled them. He knows they're going to say things that are off the wall. But when it's people that are serious, who, other than Camille Paglia, she's very smart. She's not going to mince any words. But she just happens to have a very libertarian, like women should just kick guys in the nuts and they don't have to have any, And so I agree with a lot of what she says. She's very interesting and provocative, but I disagree with, her a lot, So anyway, he Googles people, I think, and likes. I know I don't keep talking here, but that I don't think.
No,
I
go
think
ahead. Keep talking.
I think he sets himself up for someone where he can walk off the set because it's a mainstream journalist that he knows is an idiot, regardless of where they stand, or it's going to be someone that got purple hair and 3 piercings and is like all the way over on a far left woke, saying that he already knows who he's meeting when he engages them. What do you think?
So the reason for his popularity, you think it's that it's a lot of people that are troubled, in their lives, and they're going to him for the answers?
I think he's just very clever. He's just he just knows. In other words, like we could talk about Steve Bannon, right? Well, Jordan Peterson knows. He understands clicks. He understands audience. And so he could say, oh yeah, I hit this topic. Whether he believes it or not, he'll just throw stuff red meat out there like a Trump does. Like an intellectual Trump. Not that he agrees with Trump. I don't mean that, but I mean he just knows how to take this little controversy and run with it. He's a huckster. He's a P.T. Barnum.
Okay, but he's connecting with people though. He's effective.
So did
So
P.T. Barnum.
you got to
So did
give him
Trump.
his props.
Right. I give him the same credit I give P.T. Barnum and Donald Trump. So, yeah, I give him a lot of credit for being a great huckster and a really intellectual version of somebody who reduces things to the same level of a Steve Bannon or a Tucker Carlson or a Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro's another one. He's brilliant. I would love to debate either one of those guys.
You don't like hucksters?
Well, no, Martin Luther King was a huckster. I love Martin Luther King.
How do you how do you push back against hucksters?
Engage them on their own level. That's the only way you can win any argument. You cannot engage by saying, no, I'm right, you're wrong. And that's exactly the kind of people that Jordan Peterson engages with exclusively. People that automatically are going to disagree with him. He could never, whether if people are going to talk to him on his own terms. And that's how I would treat a Ben Shapiro or or a Jordan Peterson.
What about Donald? Jordan Peterson at my event sat on stage with Sam Harris for 4 sessions, and I think Sam Harris would be one of the people at the top of the at the top of their intellectual game with regards to the kind of challenges they could lay towards Jordan. And I think Jordan took that challenge head on.
Okay, how would you define Sam Harris in terms of his like worldview or where he's coming from generally?
Nivek, one thing, brother, the typing that you're doing is just,
sorry,
it's getting
I'll
picked
stop.
up by your mic a lot. Well, I mean, I think Sam Harris is right about morality. Him and I carry the same moral foundation, and I don't want to make this about anything else too much. But
is he in the Foucault school there?
sorry,
Is he? I should know more about Sam Harris. Obviously, I know who he is, but would you say he's Foucault oriented?
not necessarily.
Okay,
I mean, I think Sam Harris is a Buddhist more than anything.
okay.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, to your claim that, Jordan, I think you're painting him a little bit unfairly when you say, like, he's only looking for these, like, trigger kings or queens out there. I think, he sat on stage with Slavoj Žižek and, some of the world's greatest minds. So, I think, I think a lot of people see him in this, talking about this realm of philosophy and God, and I think he's still on his journey of clarifying the God concept, which most people, by Jordan's age have clarified, exactly what it is they believe. But, I would say even ever since I've known Jordan, I've seen him go through a huge transition into how he even speaks about Christ and, the different things he may or may not believe. He's on quite the journey, and he's been through quite a few life experiences that I think have, phenomenologically shaped also what's been emerging in more recent Petersonian belief structures, I guess I would say. But yeah.
But you know what I see that as? I see it kind of like Oprah-esque. Let's go on a journey together. Now you could say Russell Brand's like that, but I think Russell Brand's much more heterodox. And so what I think is Jordan Peterson wants to enlighten himself and then bring you to where he found himself to become. So yeah, sure, he's going through it, but he wants you to ultimately believe what he believes. That's what I ultimately
Well, I think he believes he's got the right moral answer, grounding it in this metaphorical take. And by the way, a purely postmodernist take on Christianity, which is quite interesting. And I would like to set this challenge to the room. Those of you who are, who know a lot about Jordan Peterson's work. Do you see Jordan Peterson as a postmodernist? I think he approaches Christianity and God as through a postmodern lens, and we talk about this a lot. Myself, Don, Jolly, a few people in the Discord server. This is a topic that comes up a lot, so just something to think about.
By the way, Kevin, are you there? Hello?
Donald, you mean?
Oh, that's his name, Donald? I thought it was Kevin.
No.
Hello, sir, are you there?
Are you still there, Donald? Looks like you might be stuck blue there. Nivek, try refreshing your screen. Oh, there we go. You there, Donald?
Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, you got a new caller. Oh, I was asking. Okay.
That's who we were talking to. We were talking to Donald, Nivek. I was just refreshing. We should probably move on to the next caller, Donald, unless you had anything else.
I don't know. Jordan Peterson. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't think he's honest. I just think that he's just a very clever media, modern day, 21st century. Let me see how I can, negotiate this world. And I don't think he's out there, yes, I think he's on a personal journey for real and all that. I agree. I don't think that he's evil or anything like that. But I just don't think he's, I don't know. I don't see him as real. I see him as kind of like a Dr. Phil or Oprah or Dr. Oz, frankly.
All right, we'll call back Donald for sure. Or
Well, I
unless
think
you
they're
had
all
anything,
phony
Nivek.
shams. Look who Oprah chose to give her the biggest platform, not to say go tangentially. Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil, come on.
Yeah, I don't get too personal with JP in thinking of him as a phony. I just see reality play out in a way in things happening, right? And where he's effective. And I don't put my emotions into having any issue with that effectiveness, you know? It's kind of like it's more it's an interest to me. It makes me think like why that is, and if you do have a problem with it, then how to counter that. And I kind of have a theory in that somewhat. I think that people they they want to people naturally they have this nature of relating and seeking answers, you know. And it's kind of like instead of seeking an answer, you could be given a confirmation bias, you know, for what you believe. And instead of really, you know, so you can give a confirmation bias for what you believe, and you can give a confirmation of your safe space. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you not being open. And it's kind of like a lot of times what the few people have, their identity is in it, and they kind of want the validation for that identity. I think people can change either or, in where they go to the direction of their safe space in their confirmation, in seeking a confirmation bias, or they go the other direction in being open to different information.
Hey, Nivek, may I suggest, Donald, if you want, I just sent you an invite to speak. Nivek, is it okay if Donald joins us up in the speakers column here?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, cool. And then we can pull
You
in
can bring
Cameron.
anybody in. I don't.
Yeah. Well, let's. So I invited Donald if you want to join us as a speaker, and we'll move on to Cameron next. Make next
Sure
caller.
thing.
Or Donald, did you follow me?
I think Donald. Okay, he fell back down. I'll invite him to speak again. Okay,
Hello?
you're up, Cameron, with Nivek. All right, then I'm gonna mute Nivek. It's all you.
Hello?
Hey, you there? Can you hear me? Nivek, try refreshing. Oh, he might not hear me. Just stand by, everyone.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. You there, Nivek? Check.
Oh, is Donald there? I can't hear anybody.
Can you hear me, Nivek? Let's see.
Hold on.
Can you hear me, Nivek? Nivek?
Okay.
Check.
Yeah, I can
Okay,
hear you.
good. Okay, we have Donald up here. Okay, go ahead, Cameron.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I'm a Flintstone, not a Jetson. I used to be a Jetson when it comes to technology, but what can you do? That was the analog age.
It's
In the
all
digital
good.
era, I'm a Flintstone.
Cameron, you're up,
Did-
man. Let's get Cameron here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna invite you guys. I'm gonna invite Sean to speak. I'm gonna invite Kevin to speak. You guys can come jump in the speakers group here with us, and that'll be easier for you, Nivek.
Okay, I'll wait. Let those three guys talk, and then we'll.
Yeah, they're gonna come join us. So you guys just
I
accept.
just wanted.
Yeah, go ahead, Nivek. It's all you.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask Donald a quick question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like what I
All
was
right,
saying
sorry.
before. You,
Sorry.
yeah. What
Okay.
I was saying before, the question that I was asking, and I think it's like I think people are conflicted, and they 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 want to go to what is familiar, and they want a validation of confirmation bias. And I
Right.
think
They want to.
and I'm not okay. Forget about JP. I'm just talking about like in general. You know what I mean? In going to people who 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 are speaking to the masses. You know, you have folks that would tell you the things that you want to hear, and they'll preach to what's more relatable to you, against what is against otherism. You get what I mean?
Yep.
So you have the confirmation bias, which is the way you reason things out, and where you're being told what you want to hear, and you have uh, a relatability of, you know, you're about where you're about what's relatable. So you're about what's relatable, and you're about what's in upholding that, and you're about your confirmation bias. And I think that it's a battle between uh, saying something that is coming across to a person in a different viewpoint that they're not familiar with, in communicating with them for it to be more relatable. You get what I mean?
Yep.
To change off of their view. And so you and whatever issue that they're going on in what's going on in their life, you want to bring fact and logical thinking instead of, you know, objective fact and objective reasoning, off of to kind of take them off of their bias, which is not easy. So if but the thing about that is, if you tell a person how to do something factually, logically, to engage with their problem, they would feel better as a result, right? I think that's, and they'll be enlightened, right? They'll get the weight of the burden of their misery off of their shoulders, right?
Hey, Nivek, what do you think of passing it over to Sean? Sean's quite the Jordan Petersonian himself. So maybe, what do you think of getting Sean's take?
Okay.
Cool.
Hold on.
He's right up here in the speakers thing with us. Sometimes you have to refresh, Nivek, and I think you got that now. But yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Okay, so what's the question that you need me to answer? That's the first. I would say that's my first question: is what exactly am I giving my take on?
The views of JP. Why do you think he has such a large following? What is it about him and his what is about him that attracts a large following, and what is it about the followers?
First thing that a fact that I would say the first thing about Jordan that I guess makes him relatable is that the way that he talks, he makes things relatable. Because first of all, he'll take any sort of topic that he's talking about, he relates it back to you. If you've ever watched any of his lectures, he'll make up a situation, and he'll put it in the context of a story. He hangs the facts within the story to make it relatable. And the second thing that is unique to him, as far as psychologists go, is that his use of archetypes, because everybody knows what archetypes are, whether they know it implicitly or explicitly or not. And I would say that that's one of the things that makes him relatable. As far as the followers go, I can't speak for all of them, but I can speak for on behalf of myself and maybe for those in a similar pattern. Is I was once upon a time one of those lost, meaningless people that was just kind of spinning around in circles without an aim, and
Yes.
and so with so at first there was this video. Well, it wasn't really the video; it was the memes on Facebook, the "So You're Saying" memes, and I was like, what is this about? So I went and watched the interview and saw how Jordan was able to stay calm in the face of that opposition. You could say that Kathy Newman's one of those, what is it that Donald called them, trigger queens?
Yeah.
She was definitely one of those types. And, fine, fair enough. You can make the argument that, he really makes arguing with people who are ideologically possessed look easy. But I went back and looked at his lectures, and one of the things that really resonated with me was the idea of, well, what is it that you want in your life? Because that's a question everybody asks themselves. It's like, what do I want my life to look like? Now, the question may not be exactly that as it's worded, but everybody asks themselves a variation of that, and the idea that, well, if you took some responsibility for yourself, figure out where you want to be in life and where you don't want to be, and then aim at that, and it's worthwhile and it's meaningful. And there's other things that he said that I thought of when it came to the idea of responsibility and meaning. Psychologically, it's like, and I was going to school to be a psychologist before I had ever heard of Jordan, but I went back and did a lot of the reading. It's like when he talks about Frankel's experience with the camps in Auschwitz and what it means with atrocity. I didn't just take Jordan's word on any of that. I went back and I did a lot of the reading of the material that he cites on his website, for example, the books that he recommends, his recommended reading list. I started reading some of those books. I deviated from that list, and I've read a lot of stuff. I mean, it's through Jordan that I started reading Carl Jung and more of Viktor Frankl's work beyond just Man's Search for Meaning, and then started looking at Irvin Yalom. I think is one of the greatest existential psychotherapists besides Viktor Frankl or even Jordan Peterson at that point. If you listen to the way Jordan approaches problems from an existential perspective, it's existentially based psychotherapy. And that's where the origin of the ideas that I've wrestled with, and it's not that I'm a Jordan Petersonian per se. Like I would accept the title insofar as that you could call a person who studies Jung's work a Jungian, right? Or someone who takes Freud's point of view and we call them Freudians. I would say that I'm Petersonian in that sense, that I'm influenced by the psychological and psychotherapeutic approach that Jordan Peterson uses and his approach to problems.
So the times that we're in now, what is it about him you think is helpful to the changing times?
I would say what's helpful is that telling people, regardless of sex, race, or gender, because me and my wife went and saw Jordan talk in Virginia here recently, and people are lost. There is a significant lack of, I meet a lot of people. I mean, I work in a psychiatric hospital, and I interact with many different people that seem to have the same problem of meaninglessness. But if you give them encouragement that, for one, they matter and that everything they do actually matters, and just the slightest bit of encouragement is like, you can make your life better if you're willing to take the risk of taking responsibility for yourself and choosing to have meaning. Then
Where do you think the meaningless comes from? Because a lot of friction is in today's times.
well,
Where do you think that's coming from?
there's many factors for it, and we know. Well, for example, I mean, if you look at the census data, people are having children at younger ages. Most of people, they're not really parents, they're like friends to their kids. And so by the time they grow up to be adolescents, they haven't had anybody really impose any strict standards on them. And it's like, you're okay the way you are, instead of, no, you could be much more than what you are. And so there's no real motivation really to try to better yourself if you're okay the way you are. Divorce rates increase, so, high depression, high anxiety. You do have the odd off the wall crackpot that tells boys and that they're toxic and there's nothing good about them, and they're dysfunctional girls and should be raised like girls. And as people like that get older, it's like, why should I do anything worthwhile with my life if there's everything about me is wrong and pathological anyway? And so that plays a part into it. Or it's not a simple issue. You can't just point to one.
You just dropped.
Somebody's unmuted.
Yeah, so let's
Hello.
we dropped Sean there. You have Kevin too, Nivek, and Cameron. Can you join us as a speaker so that we can get Joseph in the call? Okay, great.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, and Nivek, if you do see new callers, make sure you engage with them. Always be keeping an eye on who's coming up. Thanks, man.
Okay.
Can I respond?
Go ahead.
So this is the old bootstrap theory. If only people would just make different decisions about their lives, and take responsibility. So you're telling people to pull themselves up by their own bootstrap, but they happen to be barefoot and can't afford a pair of boots. So this is what Jordan Peterson does a lot, I think. And so, as I said before, by the way, he is brilliant. I've listened to him do 2-hour lectures on Jung and on Nietzsche, and I've listened to the guy. He's brilliant in his field, and he's nuanced, and he asks questions by this of the students, etc. But when he gets into these other realms, it's like, if only people would take more personal. And notice how the previous caller, with all interesting points, but he talks about people that are lost. That's exactly the point. He goes for people that are lost and says, look, all you got to do is make different choices in your life. Forget the fact that there's been outsourcing. Forget the fact that there's been police brutality. Forget the fact that we're the most carceral state. Forget the fact that we know that every country in Europe, even the far right people in Germany, if a Trumpster went over there and said, yeah, we're going to give you American-style Trump. We know you love him. To the far right people in Europe, he said, we're going to take away your universal health care. We're going to take away.
So Donald, you're telling him he's not giving them any answers to make their life better. He's more enabling them.
The answers are you got to do it personally.
And grifting off of that enablement.
Right. He says the way to do it is not because the system is bad. No, the system is perfectly fine. It's the free market, the invisible hand, whatever he wants to say. It's like, no, you just need to make different choices in your personal life. Forget about the fact that all the factories are gone. Forget about the fact that, that pharma is a worse mafia than the mafia itself in terms of their greed, the violence, the 100,000 deaths last year, record number of opioid deaths. They put drug dealers to shame. It's not their fault. You just have to choose not to use opioids. Forget about the fact that the minimum wage in many states is $7.25 an hour. No, that's not their fault. Just go and negotiate with those workers, with the boss. With the corporation. You could do better. Just negotiate. I don't want $7.25. I want a living wage of $18 an hour. And I'm a McDonald's worker. He says these things, and and then of course, one more thing. He says things like, no, that's not the question. And he says, isn't it about this? And he says, it's about you need this and you want this, right? And then once you give him the premise, then that's it. The premise is, it's not the government, it's not the system. Don't blame other people. Look within yourself. Bullshit. That's why I say he's a huckster. He finds lost souls.
When you talk like that, it makes people in their heels. Their heels get dug in. And I wanted to go approach in communicating with folks and not being versus type of conversation, right? Because
I'm versus Jordan Peterson. You know what I mean? And like I said, he's
I get where you're coming from. I ain't
He's
got
brilliant as a lecturer when he talks about Young
yeah.
and he talks about philosophy. So, and I don't think he's evil. I just think that he is definitely a huckster, and I think that people that follow him are gonna. They're not gonna. It's not gonna work out so good.
But
If it does, it works out in spite of the fact that they follow him, not because of it.
So, hey, can you guys hear
so
me?
like, how do you like communicating to a person that have a
No.
bias in something? You know, their identity, that they have their identity, and they're gonna heel dig. So I get where you're coming from, and yeah, he's effective, and
In conning a
yeah,
lot of
you,
people to think that they can pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, even though they're barefoot. Yes.
okay. What would who's the opposite of JP? I wonder who would that
Um,
be.
Richard
Oh,
Wolff.
Richard Wolf.
Yeah, he was going to debate him, and Peterson backed out at the last minute and said it's going to cost you 50,000.
Whoa.
It was a University of Massachusetts group. They were like a left wing group, like it might have been the Fred Hampton people, whatever. And it was at MIT though. It was at a legit college, and they said, okay, yeah, we'll set it up. We'll pay for your plane fare, in your room and board to Richard Wolff and Jordan Peterson. And he said, uh-oh, they called my bluff. So he said, oh, well, I can't do it because, my time is, people are demanding and I can't say no to them. He
Yeah, but
outfitted
Donald, every
said,
speaker in Donald, every speaker in the world has a fee. Like,
nope, not Richard Wolff. Not Richard Wolff. He said, I'll debate him anytime, anywhere at my own expense.
Yeah, because, Donald, do you know how many hundreds of thousands of people will make that same challenge to Jordan Peterson or Neil deGrasse Tyson or Sam Harris?
He's an internationally renowned economist.
I understand you think he has something valuable to say, right?
No. Peterson agreed to debate him and then backed out when they called his bluff and said,
no, you think he backed out because they called his bluff, but he said that this is my fee, right?
No, after he agreed, he said, oh, well, yeah, okay, but no, now it's a $50,000 fee after agreeing. Go look it up. Go look up Google Richard Wolff.
Yeah, but Donald, you're not following me at all. You have this like evangelical way about this story. I'm saying that just because Jordan Peterson is saying that this is my fee, that doesn't mean he's saying that because he know they won't pay it and that he can just get out of doing the event.
That's exactly what he did.
How do you know what's in his mind?
Because he said it publicly, I will debate Richard Wolff, put it together and I'll do it. So they came up with the money to pay for their room and board and for their plane fare both ways for Richard Wolff and Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, and then he said, I'm going to need a fee.
Wait a minute, let me finish. So after agreeing and after they came up with the money for that, he said, well, actually, no, I've decided it's going to cost you $50,000 after the fact and after agreeing.
And how do you, Donald? I hope you listen back to this and understand how disingenuous you are right now. You are saying you are claiming to know what's in the mind of Jordan Peterson and why he demanded the fee. You're saying he said it to get out of the event. Demonstrate that.
No. I'm just presenting the facts. I can't get in his mind. He agreed. They put up the money for the room and board and for the plane fare. Then he came up with the $50,000. My assumption is he chickened out. Why? He didn't say that before the fact. Well, okay, in the negotiations, he didn't say anything about the fee until after he agreed.
That happens,
Donald.
That happens all the time. I suggest you just research a little bit how these negotiations go. Yeah, it does. I'm telling you. I make these deals all the time. These things fall apart all the time, and it's hardly ever because a speaker who had agreed to speak with someone, it hardly ever happens where they're going to use their fee as a way to get out of the event. Like, that's just stupid.
Well, all I know is Richard Wolff said, anytime, any place, anywhere, I'll pay my own way or whatever you need me to do. And Jordan Peterson never responded.
All right, Donald, let's get Sean's take here, and then we'll go back to Nivek. Sean, go ahead.
No, well, first of I guess to look at some of those rebuttals about the bootstrapping thing. It sounds to me, and Donald, if I get this wrong, you can point this out, but it sounds like you're willing to make the claim that people don't have any agency over their lives. Everybody.
No, just the opposite. People have 100% agency if they would use it.
Okay, so then if people have agency and if they're not happy about how their lives are, then why do you say they can't make any changes to them? Small improvements over time compound to very large improvements.
So what you're saying is they have the agency to get 3 jobs. They have the agency to go out and get 3 jobs and work, 60, 70, 80 hours a week and be able to pay their rent.
We're getting a bit of rope.
Well, that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is go to school and get an education and get a degree that allows you to enter into a career or a job that pays a little more because you have a little bit more knowledge and you have.
So the entire working population will eventually all be college educated and have upper middle class or middle class jobs. And what about all the people?
That's a straw man. That's a straw man of Sean's point. Donald. That's a straw man of Sean's point.
No, it's not.
Yeah, he didn't say everyone. He didn't say anything about everyone being this way.
He said, "Get an education and get a better job."
No, Donald. He said one way of going about it. Okay,
No.
Donald needs a break. Donald, go back and listen to the tape. You said one way of going about it. Or that's what Sean said. One way of going about it, you can go get an education. You can do whatever. So we're getting a bit of feedback from you, Sean.
Sorry. For some reason, I don't get audio unless my mic is on, which is kind of weird.
I'm
on my phone.
I wanted to
apologize.
I wanted to give you more.
People have agency over other.
Nivek, 2 seconds, brother. I just wanted to get Sean's take on what Donald was saying about this thing of him backing down and the mind reading. What do you think about that?
Well, mind reading is not really helpful. Like, the only time you really use like any sort of mind reading thing is if there's if there's something that happens and you can't really ask the person why they did something. You can use psychoanalytic thinking and look at the consequences, infer the motivations. If you don't understand the motivations, perhaps the consequence is what they were aiming at. That's one thing. But as far as the what you're talking about, things do fall apart because of speaking fees. There was a lady that was willing to appear on podcasts, and I thought, well, I'll shoot my shot and see if I can get her on my podcast. And it's like, well, for free, I can give you 15 minutes of my time. If you want, an hour's worth of my time, it's going to cost you about $350, which I don't have.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm sorry, I don't have the money
Well, Sean,
for an hour.
In the podcast world, that is very strange. Like people aren't getting paid for podcast appearances, That's very strange.
Well, I think it's because this lady in the domain that she's in, she's a independent female pro wrestler, and her character is very interesting because it kind of plays into that whole dark, shadow thing from a Jungian perspective. And I kind of wanted to talk about that, and I don't think you can really tackle that in minutes. I don't know if it was just a speaker's fee or what it was, but it's. I would say that if nothing else, that it speaks to the point that when you have a speaking fee on top of say the other things that you're like, so you can make the argument, and I apologize, I just got off work about a half hour ago, but you can make the argument that you can offer to pay for somebody's room and board and all these other things, and when they agree and you follow through with that, and then they say, but I also have this speaking fee that costs X amount of money, it's an unforeseen expense, then, of course the event's going to fall apart if you can't pay for the speaking fee. And many speakers have very large amounts of, what would you say? They're very expensive speakers.
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of that dealing, just to, if you don't mind muting, Sean, just until we get the echo sorted out. A lot of that deal making is going to happen between Jordan Peterson's agents and representatives, and the other representatives. It's not going to be Jordan Peterson himself. So this is another thing. Like, speakers get to a certain level, and there's so many requests coming in. They hire agencies or an agent to deal with all of these requests. So it's going to be. And they manage it, and they're given the task to manage the schedule. And if there is something very special on Jordan's mind that he wants to do, of course he's going to say, I want this scheduled, and I want to be able to do this. So this wolf thing sounds like it was something like, yeah, I would do that. Yeah. And then he probably handed it over to his agents or his agent, and they probably engaged in some more deal making, and it fell apart. But this is business as usual, Donald. Like, this isn't a shocking thing. I'm sure the person that you think is the greatest living speaker alive today, maybe it is Richard Wolff, has done the same thing with other opportunities that have knocked on his door. Joseph, are you with us? Joseph, unmute if you can. I'm not sure. You've been sitting in the caller.
I wanted to ask, what's the guy that was? Oh, he already left. Sean.
Sean's just muted. Can you see the callers, Nivek?
Yeah.
Who do you see?
I wanted to ask Sean a question.
Okay, but I just want to make sure you're seeing the screen. You can see Joseph and Donald.
Yeah.
Okay, you're in control now. I'm going to mute for a while. Okay.
Just a quick question, Sean. You said that people have agency, right, over themselves?
Yeah.
You believe that?
I believe we operate within that framework. The biological determinists have some pretty good points and arguments, but we do act as if free will exists, especially in the realm of psychotherapy, because people come to psychotherapy because things in their life isn't going well, and there's things they want to change, and they may not know how to go about doing that. And so within that therapeutic relationship of asking questions,
you don't think that people have power over others, and see that they are to have power over others?
I believe people can influence other people, but as far as like genuine power over others, I think that's a bit of a stretch. But people can influence and have influence, sure.
You don't think a person could be at another human being's mercy? And that other human being's mercy that they're under, that other human being believes that they're to be under them. You don't think that there are people that think that way?
I'm sure there's people that think that way, but again, they're under somebody's influence.
So they don't really have to listen, right? When the gun's to their head, they can still ignore them, right? And even though they blow their brains out, they still had a choice, right? I'm just trying to follow you, is all. I'm not like arguing.
I think I made a pretty clear and distinct case for the free will framework.
I'm saying that there are people that can have power over others and believe that they are to have power over others ideologically.
People can become ideologically possessed, yes. But what does that
to say that people are about agency of themselves, some folks that have agency believe that they have agency over themselves. They believe
we're getting really bad
agency over others.
Nivek, we're getting really bad feedback from Sean. So Sean, I think if you can mute for a bit. We just got to figure out with Sean's mic why we're getting such bad feedback when you're talking to him, Nivek. So do you want to Joseph?
Anyways, let me finish what I was saying. I was just saying that people who have power over others, could believe that people that have agency of themselves also believe that they are to have power over others. The reason why I don't think that's a problem, because Jordan talks about hierarchy, and that could go to his argument towards hierarchy. So when you're talking about free will of agency, and there's also, speaking about hierarchy dominance, that I see that conflicts. It's kind of like agency free, like you like some folks, they talk about like freedom, but sometimes that freedom can be to impose themselves on others, right, in a hierarchy. So is it that type of argument? Because I mean, if you're pro agency and you're pro hierarchy, so you have pro agency for yourself, right, in doing what you want, which is to impose yourself on others in the dominant hierarchy. I was just wondering, how do you conclude what a dominant hierarchy is and isn't?
Blurita, you have control of your own mic there, so you can just click your icon
Is he
and
going to answer
unmute.
me?
Well, Sean's sorting out his audio, Nivek.
I'm trying to like reach out to people here.
Yeah, I know, but he was having a chill.
It's and like I'm not even getting that,
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Joseph. You control your own mute when you're in the caller queue. Go ahead.
I'm Blurita too. Sorry, I'm new using this app.
No worries. Welcome.
Yeah, so I'm a determinist, and I don't really believe in free will at all. I believe everything is determined. So the free will argument is just kind of a void, a null. It's just nothing. When people are like, "Oh, yeah, blah blah blah," you can, you have some choice or some control. It's like I really don't believe that. I believe everything is influenced by, there's like I think three things: environment, your parents, and then there's like social status, gender, race, all those kinds of things like that, and all factors in them. So I just really shed. I don't like the idea of free will. Doesn't make too much sense. Just to go on what they were talking about in the last, who was it? Who was it that was talking about that? The whole free will thing.
Oh, it might have been Sean or Donald. Yeah, Nivek, what do you think about what Joseph's saying?
Yeah, that's interesting what he said about free will, and things are really determined, and where people have an argument of free will, and that.
I mean, it's a big Sam Harris. It's a big Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson thing because they argued about truth, which kind of goes into that as well. Because they're like, okay, truth is this and this. You know what I mean? And I've listened to them argue about it for hours. And they just can't agree on things like that. And I'm sure they disagree on free will and determinism as well.
I see. That could be a bit of a con too, because you can go to a person and tell them that they have free will and responsibility.
Oh, sure.
While you're
sure.
in the background manipulating their lives, right? And then when shit
Yeah,
goes
well,
bad,
you
just tell them, well, it's because you didn't do what you're supposed to. And really, it's because you did some funny business. You get what I mean? So it could be an effective con on a person. It
could be a pro or a con. I think like it's kind of weird. The whole concept of free will is kind of weird, and the whole concept of even determinism becomes kind of weird to people who believe in free will. It's kind of a crux. It's like which one is right. You know what I mean? People are like, oh, I can make a decision or I can make a choice, but the thing is, somebody could come up with a gun to your head and just fucking shoot it, and you're dead. It's like, where was the free will? You know what I mean? That kind of argument.
Yeah, like you can say to a person like you're supposed to go about doing this and do it right, and they go about trying to do it, but really you go behind the scenes, you rig it a bit, you throw you probably like pull wires out of whatever gadget that they have, or and have it go
Yeah,
wrong.
this was
And
one
then
of the
you
more
say,
interesting discussions. I was going to say, this is one of the more interesting discussions between Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson. And I like Jordan Peterson. And I like Sam Harris both. I like them both. but I thought that Jordan Peterson was definitely wrong on the free will thing, because he kind of took the side of like you can make more choices, and Sam Harrison's like it's more determinism. You know what I mean? Like you don't really have that much choice. I
Yeah,
don't know
but
if you've ever
like
watched the discussions about that,
if you want control
their
of
debate.
another person, you're gonna tell them that they have free will. So
I mean,
they
that's a
don't
good
look at
point.
the
Like
things.
if you,
They don't look at the things that are being controlled, that are being manipulated in the background of the environment.
yeah, well, nobody
That
sees it subconsciously. We don't see it.
so like if anything goes bad, you'll say, well, it's because you didn't do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah,
It's
we try to
something that has to
put
do with
some kind of blame.
yeah,
Yeah, we're like,
yeah.
oh, you did this wrong, you
You
did that
didn't pull
wrong.
up the
It's
bootstraps,
so
man.
simple.
You got to pull up the bootstraps.
It's I see it as an oversimplification. I don't see it as the bootstrap thing. I think the bootstrap thing is actually a way for people who are victimized to give an excuse. They're not empowered. I believe that's actually kind of different. It is it's an ideological difference.
I'll be
Is
honest.
that you
Like
tell people?
I came across a person that tried to con me like that before, and I did the same thing to them. And
No,
they
I've
thought
been
they
bootstrapped.
thought
Someone's
that
like,
they actually believed that they failed because it was something that they did wrong. When I'm calling them an idiot, but they didn't know like I'm flipping. I'm doing back to them what they're kind of trying to do to me because people can
yeah,
be manipulating.
Hey,
yeah, but I
Joseph.
also, yeah.
Joseph, I sent you an invite to be a speaker. Come and join us in the speaker column here, just so we can
Okay,
get.
how do I do that? I'm trying to. This app's brand new to me. I just
Yeah,
downloaded
it's all
it.
good.
You know.
Should be
So
in your notifications.
You have been invited to speak. Okay.
There you go. And we'll make TJ the next caller, and we'll get to Donald after that. TJ, you're live with Nivek. Nivek, take it away. Yeah.
Hi, TJ.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My question is, what is the most important topic that we should focus on next 6 months?
The most important topic, I
Hello?
guess, Ukraine and
This
Russia.
is a live debate. Hello?
What's that?
Ukraine and Russia.
Can you guys see me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Joseph. Yeah,
Oh, hear me. Sorry.
that's right.
This is a live debate. Or talk, I should say, not debate.
Yeah, that's what I want to have is a conversation. I'm not.
Yeah, exactly.
And I want to communicate. You know what I mean? And
Oh yeah, I hear you.
I'm trying.
I hear
I'm
you.
trying.
Absolutely.
I want to talk to a hardcore. You know what I mean? And just see if I.
Oh, you want a hardcore JP fan?
The thing about it is just I think there's people have both minds in whether they're going to lean towards him or away from him.
Yeah.
And
so can I give you my history though? Because I'm going to give you a little history. So I used to be a hardcore Sam Harris fan.
Oh.
And then I actually JP came around, and I actually started leaning more towards him because Sam Harris kind of started to go kind of more left. I mean, I went to Seattle when he had I live in Seattle. He had the speaker on. I forget his name. Harvey, not Weinstein. It's one of the Weinstein brothers.
It was Eric. It was Eric.
Yeah, one of them. And I liked it. And then he even got heckled. They were calling him a white guy. They're like, "What the fuck are you doing?" They actually heckled him in his own show, and I couldn't believe it. And he didn't really say anything about it. But he was calling out the Evergreen scandal, you know, and the whole thing with Evergreen School. And so I've loved Sam Harris for like 10 years. I bought all his books, everything. But JP, there's something about him. This is why I agree with you guys. They're talking about like he's like the Christ or something. I'm like, he speaks to people. Sam Harris used to speak to people. Like he was like the Christ. If you had the title for him 10 years ago, I would have agreed. You know what I mean? So like I think times and I think things change over time, like with who is more relevant and who speaks more to the minds of the people that they're trying to speak to. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, So, anyways, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that there are two ways you communicate with folks. One can be through a confirmation bias way, and
I think everybody has confirmation
peddling.
bias no matter what,
Let me
though.
just let me just.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Sorry.
One could be a confirmation bias way, and another one can be uh, a way that is about relatability, and relatability can be in two ways, and where
Yeah.
unrelatability can be about what you're familiar with,
Of course.
and wanting that, of course, because
Of
that seems
course.
like a safer route, and another relatability could be something that you're not familiar with, but it engages with you in a way that makes you open to
Um,
identifying with it.
mm,
Nivek, you're
So you have you and one, and instead of the confirmation bias, you have a objective fact and logic reasoning, in where you can go
yeah.
out of objective fact and logic reasoning in a problem to overcome the problem, or you can have the confirmation bias in validating your belief. So
Yeah.
it's either or in teetering. So when you're communicating with a person, it's being in the middle of that person. It's that you're to communicate in a way to them, to draw them, and it could be on one. It doesn't matter what side. You can be on one side or the
hmm
other. You just have to know how to go about it in a way, and how to interact with them that
Yeah.
would. So the fact and logical way, you give them a good, decent solution to a problem. You enlighten their mind. You get what I'm saying? It's kind of like, crap, I've always wanted to
hmm
overcome this damn problem.
Yeah.
Thank you fucking very much. I really needed that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
Oh,
really
yeah.
helped me out, bud. You did me a solid there. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And
No, I totally understand what you're
you
saying. I
you
totally
have
agree.
a relatability, in where a person could engage with another person that they aren't familiar with, and they can just boom click,
hmm
right?
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
so the human nature of those two sides, in where something can be foreign to you, and you just fear what you don't understand, and you just think through your emotions of hate and fear, right? It's like a
Yeah. I
natural.
mean,
It's a natural
I
thing.
think it depends on the person you're talking to, but
So
um,
so it's about like understanding those two sides and engaging with a
I don't
person.
think it's quite the dichotomy you're laying out, but I think it's a lot more
I'm
complicated. I
not
think
making
everything's a lot
sense.
more
I'm not making
complicated.
any sense. Where did I
No,
not
no,
make
I'm
sense?
saying it's quite. You're kind of laying out a dichotomy,
Okay,
and I don't know if that
okay. Go
dichotomy is
over what I
true.
said. Go over what I said. Like what part? Like what
So
was?
you're trying. You're just. It seems to me. I'm not trying to misrepresent what you're saying. It seems like you're trying to say that this person has this interpretation of this person of life, of reality, whatever, and another person has one that's a different against. You know what I mean? I believe that um, human beings in general, like I a lot of people can agree on certain things, and
Yeah,
then that's where they kind of find common ground. But then when they kind of get to know each other even more, they're like, oh well, I disagree with you on this topic or that topic. You know what I mean? Or this thing or that thing. It could be politics. It could be life. It could be the way to raise a family. You know what I mean? It could be anything. And I don't
yeah.
think it's
It's
like so.
complicated.
I don't think it's so dichotic. It's not like one or the other. You know what I mean?
No, man. There are many different things that example that I gave. There'd be many different things that
Oh, so it's not a dichotomy you're trying to lay out. It's not a dichotomy.
no, no.
You're
It's
just saying that these are the things that could possibly pit people against each other. Their differences. You know what I mean?
yeah. And
Uh,
there are many differences in where a person would lean one way in agreement with the person,
Or
um,
and
disagreement. Yeah.
and
can I just say, Nivek, we do have a lot of people in the room here waiting to chat with
okay.
you. Have a look at your screen. Joseph and anyone else, make sure you're muted if you're not speaking, just so we can maximize the audio quality of these episodes. Um, Yeah, Nivek, feel free to choose anyone you want, or if you want to ask a question to the room, it's all yours, man.
You can open the room. It's okay.
No, it's up to you, dude.
Oh, no, I don't see any. I don't see
Hello?
that button.
Can you? Yeah, I know you don't have the button, but all of these people, you can see everyone, right, Nivek?
Yeah, I can
They're
touch
in.
on anybody.
Yeah, you can talk to any of them, and they'll unmute. Yeah.
Oh,
Hello?
okay. Never
Yeah.
mind.
Okay.
Hey, Nivek, Travis?
Hello.
Hey, Donald.
Yeah. First of all, brilliant job. Really excellent moderator. You know, you're letting things go off on all kinds of tangents, and yet you keep bringing it back to the main theme. Really, really, really well done. Very, very professional, Nivek and Travis. You've been there less, but same thing, man. Great, thank you. But you know, you were going to ask me a question way before, and it was really about this idea of confirmation bias, etc. And yeah, I think that the previous Joseph was understanding that it's not an either or, that it's both. That there's confirmation bias, and then there's just a fact.
That's actually what I wanted to ask you. Actually, yeah, I wanted to bring that up
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah. Do you want to reassert the question briefly, or do you? Or should
Okay,
I just run with it?
No,
Go.
So okay, so I'm saying there's two sides in where a person would lean. It could be to a person that's saying confirmation bias and telling a person what they want to hear, and it could be about relatability and bringing to them things that they're familiar with to into a safe space. You know what I'm saying? And you have what's different. What's the different perspective on the other side is that the matters that are going on in their life, you bring objective fact and logical reasoning forward instead of the confirmation bias, and where you're engaging the problem in their life, the matter in their life, and you're overcoming it, and then you're making them feel better as a result, and then you get validation from them there. You get what I mean? Instead of the confirmation bias, because a lot of times the confirmation bias can be like, okay, if I try to do this thing that I can't, I'll fail, and then the ignorant, idiotic person that I see myself to be, you know what I mean? It will just confirm it, and I don't want to. I can't deal with that fear. I'd rather be told what I want to hear. So it's
Okay.
kind of like it's so I'm just putting I'm what I'm doing is I'm doing a versus. It's like I'm on one side saying speaking confirmation bias to you and mentioning things that are relatable to you, that mentioning things to you that are normal in your life, that are relatable to you, and on the other side I'm trying to address the problems in your life and approaching them in a factual and logical way to have you overcome them to make you feel better. So a lot of folks, they're troubled, right? And you could tell them about their problems and saying, hey, everything that you every everybody, all the naysayers, they're wrong. You know everything. You know what I mean? You tell them whatever they want to hear in confirmation bias, or you engage with the person in a way towards addressing their problems, identifying what it is, having them develop an understanding, and then have an idea more likely how to overcome it as a result. You get what
Yes.
I'm saying?
Yes.
And as a result, feel better that way. And people can feel better different way. You know what I mean? In different ways. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's kind of like, you know what? I feel bad that this guy did this. I'm just gonna sock him, and I'll feel better as a result. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like if you're Will Smith and somebody disses your wife, you know.
Or you can, yeah, or you can approach a problem reasonably and maturely and overcome it and be and feel great. You know what I mean? And you feel validated that way.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have a wrestle between two competitors. One would be a person that would be trying to relate to you in overcoming a problem factually and logically, you know what I mean, and reason. And you have another person that would be saying, hey, everything you think of and everything you know, that is the right way to look at it. You know what I mean? People saying like the way you're approaching it is wrong. They don't know anything. You're the genius. They're the idiot. You know, and I'm just talking about how to engage with people in a way that is relatable in communicating. Because some people, you have to understand how to communicate with people.
Yes,
And I
yes,
want to
yes.
have that conversation on communication. On communication
Yeah.
is really what it's about. It's not about versus Bash JP. That's how come I didn't really want to be like, okay, well, you know what I mean.
Right. No, I agree. Now, yeah.
So it's kind of like, how do you come across to a person? Like if you have a person that has a confirmation bias, and you know what I mean, and their safe space mindset, how would you communicate with that person? It would not be easy, right?
Nivek, I guess I'm missing how you relate that to people that follow Jordan Peterson, or how Jordan Peterson is communicating. Like, can you connect that for me? Like, I really don't understand that.
Oh, who's this? Hold on, just a second.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Oh, Juan.
Yeah, this is Juan. Yeah, Dozio. You know, I mean, I talk to you frequently in the server, Nivek. Or at least
Oh,
somewhat frequently, I would say.
well, that it might be, and it might not be. It's hard to say what JP is, and I didn't really want it to.
Oh, it was like disconnected from your
Can you hear me?
criticism there. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, and it's hard to confirm if he is that or isn't.
Is
And
what?
I'll just, well, a person that tells people what they want to hear, and
Okay, I see what you mean. A people pleaser.
so it's kind of like you're telling a person to like you're speaking against anti-fact and reasoning that people don't really need that, and maybe that might, I don't know.
You mean like, is he someone that tells the crowd like what they want to hear just to like get a good rise out of them, like that type of person?
Yeah.
I
And
think he is that. I really do think he is that. I think he's even spoken about being that, right? Like I've heard him make this point various times about like how he's
yeah,
quote unquote listening to the people that he's talking to, or he's like
yeah,
keeping an eye on like a few of them, and he'll say that like when everybody gets silent and is like making complete attention on him,
well,
giving
it's he's hard
big
to
complete
define,
attention,
so
he'll recognize that
I
and
wanted to
he'll
go a
like
route of
talk around that.
potentially that. He's hard to define, so I wanted to go the route of potentially that, and
Okay.
as a result, a person that is that way, if he is or if he isn't, or maybe others that are like that, like how would you, how would, like when you're trying to engage with another person in, in in a relatable way in communicating with them,
Yeah.
the they're gonna have to relate to you. I mean, like in
Yeah,
America's
of
past,
course.
people killed each other like mad. It was, you know what I'm saying? Everybody hated everybody.
Yeah, you have to put yourself in their shoes to really communicate. I get what you mean.
And the thing about it is, they came together as Americans, right? So
I guess I don't.
people relate to each other as that, and I was just
Sure. No, I agree with you there.
I know so like this. That's why I was giving the example of like you know instead of like attacking a person, you could say, hey, like whatever you're frustrated in your life, that particular problem, how about this approach and that approach, you know you, in reasoning things out and overcoming it, and having them get validation by thinking like that, instead of being told something that is a confirmation bias that's not really helping their lives.
Um, okay. Um, that's hard to like distinguish for me. Because to a degree, like people don't listen unless you're like you have to speak in people's language to be heard often. Um, and I think there's a blurry line between trying to be heard and altering your message in such a way that you lose what you were trying to say to the person, right? Like that's sometimes not very it's not very a clear cut issue, you know? Like sometimes you have to um let's say sugar the soup um so that it could be eaten more so than other times. And I think that like if we're talking about that like a lot matters about like who you're talking to, the power paradigms of like who like what it is that is happening when you convince or don't convince. I guess to me this is getting really far away from the Jordan Peterson thing. But I
Well,
guess I
maybe
actually
he's
don't
a
know how much
grifter, maybe he isn't, and I'm just
grifter.
bringing an opposing, like an
Okay, well,
opposing.
how about this? How about let's separate it. Let's separate it into two. What makes you think that he is a grifter? And then I'll ask you what makes you think that he isn't. You know what I mean?
What makes me think that he might be a grifter?
Yeah, yeah. No, not that he might be. What makes you think that he 100% is?
I didn't. That's not what I'm going off of.
Okay, for sure. I see what you mean. Okay.
Because
Well, what hints towards grifter-esque towards you, you know? Like what makes you think he's grifter-ish?
I guess in the like when you're talking against, like when he's conversating with Sam, he's talking about anti-reasoning and going against the scientific hypothesis in solving problems, and where that's not going to get you answers. It makes it seem like people that don't people who have a belief, they want it to be about, they just want to believe what they want to believe, right?
Finding other reasons that you're
And
thinking
to have
like,
a and they don't want to be told that it's wrong, so to give an explanation and how to solve, how to approach something, in a way that will come to a different conclusion that they want, it
okay. Yeah,
that's
like the confirmation bias thing, basically.
yeah, so you don't want a confirmation of what
Mm.
you believe not to be the case. So to say, to be attacking reasoning, it's
Okay.
and with the being pro religion, not having a stance in where he's, and that's saying necessarily where he stands. It's kind of like, okay, well, these people want
Hmm.
to kind of hear this, so maybe I'll just
I
act
see what
like
you
I
mean.
am, but I'm not
I
really.
see what you
But
mean.
so, and the thing of, and the genius part of that is that you don't make a commitment in where you stand, so nobody can have you accountable on anything, which is brilliant. I love him for that. That is genius, and uh, it's it's kind of like religion too. It's kind of like, well, I did this act. It's kind of like, why did you do that? That's a messed up act. Well, God told me, so you don't have responsibility, right? right? It's not.
Okay.
It's something
I
that.
think you're okay. Right there, you brought in one too many issues.
Sorry about that.
Okay, no, you're good. So you made reference to one of the, I don't even know if I've watched all of the Jordan Peterson Sam Harris debates. They were like way too slow and long for me to listen to, like actually. But I think I do remember watching something about what you're mentioning, which is, and let me paraphrase this and tell me if I'm off right here. JP was saying something about how there's limits to the scientific method and like forming a hypothesis, experimenting, and then doing that over and over and over. And that some of the limits of that are like consciousness and like why it is that we're here and that type of question, like religious questions, and the divide between like religious and moral questions versus scientific ones. Um, and he was making an argument that there is a benefit to this mysticism and type of religious symbolicism in answering these sorts of moral questions. Right? Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Okay.
and he doesn't
And you
really
think it
say
would,
that he doesn't
for
really
sure?
say that
No,
he doesn't really say that he is religious or not, and
I think he's okay.
kind of
Well, I think at the beginning he was a little more.
he's kind of grifty. It's just a
I
tad.
think I think at the beginning he was definitely a little more on the atheist maybe side, but I think as of recent, especially his wife, have like gone into this deep religious circle. I would say with genuine um other Orthodox, other religious people that have been like very um let's say common in like the religious spheres recently, and I think he's very much so more religious nowadays. He's had conversations about joining religious communities, like different churches and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
I think he's definitely far more religious than he was like in the first years that he came out.
He talks about God metaphorically, though, right?
Right. I think what he calls God is not, and when he mentions that he's religious, I don't think he
So he's not
ascribes to the
really
sort of God that
potentially.
you are thinking about,
You get what I'm
right?
saying? So he's not really religious potentially, right? It's kind of like
No, I think he is. I think he is.
you get what I'm
I
saying
think
when I
it's
say
not the
metaphor.
religion that it's not the Orthodox type of going to church, like confessing your sins and like praying to the saints type of normal religion, but it's definitely like a spiritual, I'm gonna cry about my numinous experiences
Listen. It's
type
not
of.
the belief. It's not the actual belief. It's about the metaphor. You
No,
understand?
no, I think he would still side on it's about the belief, right? It's about the faith, it's about
Oh,
the
really? You think he's hardcore believer in
faith.
God?
Mm, Yeah. No, no, not hardcore, right? But I think he would, and I know he doesn't like or like there's much conversation about his answering the question, do I believe in God? But I think to most people, he would have to answer that yes. And there are select few people, uh, whom have different views of what they would mention God to be. Um,
I think he
that
might
I think he would have
understand.
a harder time saying that he believes in that type of a God. And therefore, often people will be like, oh, you don't believe in what I call God, so how can you say that you believe in God? And so there's this whole weird having to defend a viewpoint going on.
Well, it's
And I
really
think
you
he
don't have to
doesn't
take it. You don't have
particularly.
to take a stance. You can just say, well, it's metaphor.
It's
Well,
metaphor, you said?
I think the problem with the whole belief thing, and this is, I know I've been taking the task about it myself, is that is there's two sources of the idea of belief that Jordan talks about. One is comes from Emil Durkheim, that religious was what you did. It was an action. It was something that was acted out. It was a social activity. And Emil Durkheim, I forget when he made that claim. And then there's Willem Freehoff, who is a Dutch historian of religion and came up with the idea that most most religious people think of religious as a top down experience. You've got God at the top and people at the bottom, and it's a top down thing. But Freehoff came to the conclusion that no, religious was what you acted out. It was from a bottom up process, and that so. And this is kind of the idea of you act out your beliefs, and Carl Rogers, to a degree, who was a psychologist and came up with the idea of congruence. That if what you say you believe and what you act out don't match, then you're incongruent. And so the idea was to bring the person into congruence, meaning that getting them to start acting out what they say they believe, or get them to say what they believe in to match what they were acting out, made them integrated as a integrated individual and made them congruent. Now, I think the best description of what Jordan calls God is the ultimate good or something like that, because of the research that he's done for the past 40 years on, what happened in places like Auschwitz and the Soviet gulags. That, the Nazis were pretty evil, and what they were acting out, you could say, is probably like the ultimate evil that human beings can act out. And so if that's like as evil as you can get, then the ultimate good would have to be the absolute polar opposite of that.
No,
You guys can tell me, and you guys can tell me what you think about that.
No. I agree with you. In fact, I think Jordan makes the same point. Jordan Peterson makes the same point that you're making. And he brings up this quote by Carl Jung. It's kind of stereotypical, actually. But he said, Carl Jung says, modern people don't see God because they don't look low enough. And I think that's straight to your point of the bottom up instead of the top down principle thing that you were saying.
Now, in the particulars of Peterson, don't his religiosity overlap entirely with his drug addiction and experimental brain surgery?
I didn't hear that. So maybe somebody else can. Can you repeat that?
You said it again?
Doesn't Peterson being religious in the past 4 years correspond precisely with his experiences as a drug addict and then as a guinea pig undergoing experimental brain surgery? Those two things are true, right? Those two things happened.
Know about the brain surgery, but I think he's been very open about like taking antidepressants since like he was 30 or something.
Right, but basically
he's spoken about other like drinking.
In desperation, he submitted to experimental brain surgery because his drug addiction was too problematic. Right? That's what happened.
No, he went through rehab program. Well, medically induced coma to
would love to
medically detoxed. He never went through brain surgery. That's never been claimed. That's not a claim that Michaela has ever made.
So
Good question,
well, I heard
Mateo.
he had a detox program in Russia specifically. That
I heard about that. Mateo, I have a question. Are you trying to say that because he went through this drug withdrawal and like did this experimental surgery and I don't know what else you mentioned, but because of these things that somehow well, I guess I don't know what you're trying to say. Why do you bring that up?
Well, it's obvious that his more kind of ridiculous, less intelligent takes and his kind of fetishization of religion without understanding religion, fetishization of mysticism without really understanding
what takes
the traditions
specifically, Mateo?
Let's
hang on.
I'm just saying,
you guys hang on for a second.
I want to hear him finish.
Yeah,
I'm just saying I don't know why we overcomplicate what's the case of a middling intellectual suffering brain damage.
Okay, hang on.
Getting more religious.
Mateo, I'd like you to deal with some specific claims of Jordan's. Do you know any?
I mostly know him as kind of a celebrity that hangs out with Andy Ngo and Josh Rogan and Tim Pool types.
So you don't know any of his quotes, the things, the ideas you disagree with?
Oh, there's nothing to disagree with as far as I can tell. He mostly makes socially conservative, reactionary observations that don't really say anything, that more or less confirm a kind of vague, contrarian, reactionary worldview without any intellectual substance. And when you watch the man, he clearly is not all there. And obviously his history of drug abuse kind of goes with the real intellectual weakness that seemingly comes with his attempt to string ideas together.
Do you have any challenges against any of his ideas?
Well, give me. Why don't you give me an idea?
No. I'm just interested to know, like, you talk about, I think you said pseudo-intellectual or something. Like, what ideas specifically can you refute here? Like something he claims
Well,
that you can.
unlike another
The answer is
professor with a
none.
large audience, with a very similar large audience, unlike Rush Limbaugh, who I do associate with some kind of small government Reaganism, I don't even really associate Peterson with any particular ideas except the general kind of low energy right wing echo chamber material.
That's an all-encompassing non-answer. So have you ever
got one.
read or listened, Mateo, to Jordan Peterson speak, or did you just read some headlines about him? Because your critiques here are, you mentioned that he's some kind of pseudo-intellectual. Your critiques just sound like talking points from Jordan Peterson haters.
Well, it's like you're like asking me which chunks of meat did I enjoy most in the oatmeal. I mean, there is no material to address.
I got an example. May I state one?
Well,
Sure,
I guess if Mateo's gonna say he's got nothing, then we'll go to Donald.
Okay, so like I've said before, when he talks in lectures, I've watched 2-hour long, full lectures in his capacity as a professor, talking about Jung, talking about Nietzsche, not just psychology. Brilliant.
I know Jung and Nietzsche probably better than Peterson. I probably remember, probably with both volumes.
No,
Hey,
I'm not trying to,
Mateo, how old are you, Mateo?
I'm not trying to critique his lectures. I'm saying it was interesting. So if he was wrong about Nietzsche, then I don't know as much about Nietzsche or whatever. What I'm saying is he's really smart and he's good in his field.
No, he's not really smart. He's not an intelligent man.
Can I just make the point?
You can try.
Thank you. So he was talking about divorce and women versus men, and the fact that women initiate 75%, I said this before, of divorces.
Right.
Now,
he has an MRA chip on his shoulder too. He kind of hates women.
Could I just finish the other half of the
Sure,
paragraph?
you can talk about his MRA issues.
Okay, so anyway, he said, because this is something that does involve psychology and but he said, now I'm speculating. Now
he's good at that. He's good at speculating.
What I'm saying is he wasn't saying this as something that is a proven point that's accepted by everybody in his field. He said, now let me speculate why it might be that women initiate.
You can speculate about his speculation.
Hey, Mateo, if you keep engaging in bad faith, you're going to get hung up on, man.
May I please finish an entire thought?
Yeah, Donald, just wait. We're dealing with somebody who's engaging in bad faith. Mateo, don't engage in bad faith here. Don't interrupt people. Let Donald finish.
Okay. So he said, now I'm speculating. Maybe it's because the fact that 75% of divorces are initiated by women is because they are emotionally not as able strongly to stand up to men, and they get more upset with things. And yes, they're nurturing and loving and all that, but they get upset more easily, and therefore they can't handle the emotional strain, and they therefore need to get divorced. And I would have
that's
loved
sort of like exactly like the way that Peterson cried in an interview.
Wait. Okay, I have another sentence. Like a woman. One more sentence, okay? If I was there, I would have said, okay, since you're speculating, Professor Peterson, I'll speculate. Maybe 3/4 of the reason, maybe the fact that 3/4 of women initiate divorces is because of literal physical abuse or the threat of physical abuse and the domination of men over them in so many ways, financially and otherwise, so that, especially the physical part, so that they feel that like they're not going to take it anymore and therefore are more than justified to
see. That's a great illustration of kind of the sense of grievance that the whole kind of MRA Fox News world that Jordan fits in with feeds on as energy, right? That kind of MRA grievance that doesn't really say anything about anything.
By the way, Mateo, can I ask you one question?
Of course.
Okay, so
and I'll answer it.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I like you. So I got a bad nasty echo.
Everyone mute who's not speaking. Everyone mute so Nivek can have his thought here.
So you said that you think of him as dumb. I'm not talking.
I didn't say dumb. I said he's unintelligent. He's
not,
probably reasonably intelligent before all the drugs.
Trust me, I'm not coming as a fan. At the end of the day, he's affected. right?
Well, he's an older guy that obviously has had long-term drug abuse issues. Yeah, of course, like many men his age that have that profile, and they're not rare in North America.
Okay, so you have it like you being anti
He's Canadian, by the way.
his view.
Canada is in North
You know,
America, as is Mexico, by the way.
let me
Mexico is
finish.
also North
Let me just finish, please.
Okay.
In him being very effective and you being anti his view,
Right.
how would you counter his approach, right? Like if I put you versus JP.
Well, I mean, we're totally different people.
How would you counter his folks? How would you counter him in his approach in having people more be able to relate to you and be convinced by you instead of him?
Well, I'm a commercial artist, so in terms of what I know about psychology and how I apply that, I put that into my work. I don't kind of sell phony psychology as a product. I'm a different person in that way.
Hey, Nivek, if I may, I think Sean should get in here, and I think it would be a good back and forth between Mateo and Sean. Go ahead, Sean.
Sean is a solid
So the first thing I want to tackle is the whole. I think there was a problem about Jordan talking about why women typically tend to initiate divorce more so than men. Well, that's been a phenomenon that's been studied since the 1970s. And the grounds for divorce typically are limited to three main factors. There's other reasons, but we'll address it among the main three factors. So in 2000, a paper was written that said that these main factors are infidelity of one partner, irreconcilable differences between the couple, and domestic violence. Infidelity or seeking sexual gratification outside marriage is seen by 90% of Americans as ethically wrong, and many states still have infidelity laws on the books, but they're rarely enforced. But men typically tend to look outside the marriage for sexual gratification more so than women. And now that could be because of trait agreeableness, because women score higher in that trait, and that's the compassion, politeness domains of that trait. Now, that's not to say that women don't also engage in fidelity. It's just statistically, men tend to do that much more than women do. Men also engage in domestic violence more than women do. It's actually more reported as well. In fact, violence against male partners is actually grossly underreported, and there's a lot of studies that have shown that.
So I get why Jordan is a representative of male inadequacy and why men feel insecure.
You got to mute Sean while Mateo's going.
Husband, but I don't really get how that's relevant here, there, to anything else. I mean, we get that he appeals to an audience that is mostly insecure men with a sense of grievance, men that don't feel they can compete. And when you look at a washed-up drug addict like Jordan Peterson who threatens nobody, then you can probably relate to them if you're also a loser in life that actually, thinks that Tucker Carlson is someone to take seriously. And it goes to that whole program. But I don't get his appeal beyond that.
Mateo, you think because he's talking about responsibility and he's abusing, that makes him hypocrite?
Oh, I mean, that's one of many. All these social reactionaries are almost invariably deep hypocrites. I mean, Newt Gingrich with his 3 wives, Rudy with his 3 wives, Trump with his 3 wives. These are the people that represent conservatism. And so a washed-up drug addict representing intellectualism to the same audience that has their brains beaten to submission by reactionary propaganda as a normalized thing, might see him as like an intellectual or moral leader. In the same way people see Trump as a moral leader, a guy that, bankrupted 8 businesses. It's kind of all.
So if you have a problem with that, they're and them being very effective in society, in affecting society, what would your approach be in countering?
Well, there's nothing really necessarily to counter. All one can really do is try to actually create things of integrity, value in one's daily life, and be the opposite of a fraud like Peterson and the poor, insecure, people that follow him.
You think a lot of the conflict because it's just growing pains of society changing, and people just because
absolutely. I think
there's
people
more
like Peterson.
interaction. We're hyper connected and engaging with many different folks that think differently. We're hyper connected in communication. Like, look at us, we're online, and a lot of that it causes friction because people's views clash, right? And
Yeah. I mean, and I think what the point that you're
interaction.
making is more why someone like Peterson has an audience is
Yeah,
that it's a very competitive, very, very competitive, connected
I didn't
world
say
right
that's
now.
why. I'm just asking if you think that might be.
Oh, I mean, I think that's why Peterson might have a following in the first place, is that people want to be told kind of like unchallenging aphorisms that play to their insecurities and play to their reactionary urges because they just can't compete in the world we have. They can't compete against technology. They can't compete against much smarter information workers in India. They can't compete against manufacturing prowess in China. They can't compete against manual labor coming up from Latin America. They have nothing to offer anybody. And so
Even if they, let's say even if they can, a person would be more comfortable to what they're familiar with in relatability, right?
generally an audience usually
So
is,
not
but I mean
liking
that's
change, so not liking change would make sense, right?
I'm sorry,
So if you're going to communicate with somebody that is foreign to you, you have to do it in a way in where you could relate to them, right?
not
That's how come
necessarily.
I was saying when you're engaging with another person, whatever issues that they're having in their life, you can communicate with them in a way in addressing whatever issues that they have, talking it out, right?
If I was
And
going to be a professional therapist, then I would want that skill set, of course.
well, that's
But
kind
I'm
of
not a
what it
professional
is, right?
therapist. I'm a commercial artist.
Hey,
Yeah,
Nivek, this is
I'm
a
not,
question you've
I'm
been
not a
asking all night.
professional therapist.
I'd like to respond to that, please.
Yeah.
So, Nivek,
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that what we're talking about, it's interesting the word agency came up because I want to write a book with that title. And what you talked about before about confirmation bias, let me say a pox on both right wing and left wing houses. So you could talk about NAFTA, which was a joke. The promise, of course, was we're going to retrain you. We're going to train you for the next generation of higher tech job, well paying, etc. Let's go back to welfare. Now, liberals will hate me, and I'm left of Bernie Sanders, and to the right, maybe slightly, of Richard Wolff. So I'm pretty far left. Okay, but what the liberals said in the '60s was, we're going to do welfare. We're just going to get free money. We're going to just take care of it with a safety net, but it's only going to be temporary. We're going to lift you up. We're going to make sure that we get great education. We're going to none of that happened. So it became a generational cycle of people that are kept being more and more dependent. And of course, there was the bulldozing of cities, by Democrats mostly, frankly.
That's a really
You know,
dumb reductionist take on American history. I feel really stupid.
what do you mean?
By the way, you have competition in people not wanting those things to come through, right? I mean, like a
Say
corporation
what?
would like you to work for nothing, and
No. What I'm saying is, as far as agency, it's like the agency to get like union wages. Okay. What I mean is, the destruction of the cities by a lot of
okay.
Democrats. But I'm saying over in the '60s.
Hey,
But what
let's.
I'm saying is,
Oh, sorry.
I don't want to
You're trying
undo
to
the safety
talk
net. I
about the
want to make
Great
it
Society,
stronger.
but
I
you're too
want
dumb to
I want
understand it. You're too
I
dumb to
want
understand the
Scandinavian
mechanism.
type
You're ridiculous
socialism.
and dead.
I want Scandinavian type socialism for everyone. But what I'm saying is that they didn't do that. They didn't do that in America like what they did in Europe in terms
Okay.
of not just say we're going to create a welfare
I already
state.
got what you're
We're going
saying.
to
You gotta let me
educate people so
finish.
that they can be creative members of society. We didn't do that in America. All we did was we'll give you fish, but we won't teach you how to fish or give you a fishing pole. That's my
Europe
point.
Okay.
also
So
didn't have
somebody
the
tries to
defense
do
budget of
something
America.
if somebody tries to do something that you're for, right? And you know that there's opposition, right? Doing their can to kneecap and everything, and because the opposition ends up getting the victory, you're gonna go. You didn't do what you're supposed to do. You know, I'm no longer for what you're trying to do because there's dual competing forces, and it sounds like you're just giving up.
So,
You know, it sounds. I mean, like you have opposing forces that want you to work for nothing in as a serf in and they bring you out.
Yeah, Nivek, we are. I just want to tell everyone who's listening, we are live on the air. Come in and if you, let's hear some defenses of Jordan Peterson. A lot of you are just writing it in text here. Jump in the call. Masha, you had a take there. What do you think on some of these attacks that Mateo was laying on Jordan?
Well, as a woman, I kind of feel like I do connect with, like, I think he's a good model for like male emotionality in some ways, and I think that the way that he like actively listens when he's engaged with someone, there's a lot of things about him kind of interpersonally that I like. But I feel like I'm gonna stay in my lane about him for the most part because I think he's a man who's speaking to men, right? And so I don't think it makes a lot of sense for me to like personalize a lot of the stuff, insofar as he talks about women or the like phenomenology around female and male relationships. I think he makes a bunch of assumptions that aren't really sensible or like that don't have like real world corollaries necessarily. But I don't know if if anyone can tell me otherwise, I'd be down to listen.
Well, I for one was curious as for your opinion for what he would his advice maybe to men. I don't think he tries to speak to men. I don't know. He's talked about it a lot before, like how his majority of his audience is male. But I think I've heard him say before that he would give the same advice to his daughter. And he has a daughter, so I mean, I think it relates to women in that sense as well, you know.
And Juan, what do you think of someone who comes in the room and, we're talking about an intellectual who puts a lot of work out there that someone could critique, but they can't cite like an idea that they disagree with. It's just ad hominem attacks. Like, what do you think of this level of interpretation of Jordan Peterson's work?
I was honestly pleased the entire time. I don't know where he went. I wish he would still here. I forgot his name, but he was very stimulating to me. I think he was projecting the whole time. I really do. I think all his like real like incendiary like gruntal attacks were straight just deliberations that he would give to himself. Like it was 1-to-1, I think, his criticism of himself. And I've had that experience with many people where I don't think I've noticed it. I don't know him, and maybe I'm speaking out of line here, but I feel like I have an intuition to like when it is that someone is speaking so clearly about themselves because of their intonation and their like he sounded so mad. He sounded so like, oh, I know and you don't,
And you
I am
sound
so
like
much
a woman.
smarter. That's fine.
I'm sorry, Juan. You're like talking about your intuition, and that's like,
That's
also
so
I
fine.
think I know, no, I'm joking. But I think we have to be careful about making any assumptions of like what is in another person's mind, especially since he's no longer in here to clarify.
I know. I mean, I don't think he would at all be down for whatever it is that I'm saying. He would definitely disagree vehemently and be like, no, I absolutely am not doing that.
Yeah,
if someone
and just FYI, if someone does come in here and say something, like, it's fine for us all to critique it. Nivek, where do you want to go next with this?
Hold on. Oh, everybody's in the room.
Yeah, you're good.
I must say, Travis, I got to make a small comment. I think you're spot on with it. Quite often, you run across individuals that can't criticize the content of someone's argument. Instead, they'll criticize.
I thought that was fucking pathetic.
Yeah,
like, that was the most, like, I have to say to this person,
really
that was the most pathetic attempt of a takedown of an intellectual I've ever heard. Like, go wipe your butt, go to bed, wake up tomorrow and do better. Nivek, you have someone by the name of Christian as your next caller.
Okay, is he unmuted?
Yeah, he's ready to go, they are ready to go now. You can.
Yeah, hello, Christian.
Christian, if you're new to the app, just tap your icon and it'll give you an option to unmute.
Yeah, it's a crazy new app. Took me a minute to figure it out.
Yeah, once you get it, it's pretty
I like
pretty
it. I like
sweet.
it. Yeah, yeah. It's all right.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
all
loving
right.
it.
Why'd you get on this? You're
Well,
trying to get away
a
from
lot
the
of it,
YouTube
a lot
media?
of it is their policies, their free speech policies
Oof,
are
oof.
essentially
Interesting.
absolute. So,
Very down for that.
yeah.
All right. Well, Christian's back with us. Hello. What's up?
So, hello.
Hello.
Is this working?
Yeah, we can hear you nice and clear.
Yeah, I was in the YouTube chat. I'm from the Dominican Republic, and I don't know.
Okay.
I've been following Peterson
Cool.
for like 5 to 6 years.
Nice, man. That's
So
that sounds interesting.
at the same time, and I've been following a lot of strange things that have been happening in the U.S. since 2016.
Like what? Like what type of
And
things? Type of strange things.
and
The changes,
I don't
right?
know. I just wanted to call because I can maybe give some perspective that's
Sure,
quite
absolutely.
different.
Very open.
So I'm sorry for my bad pronunciation, but I really don't have that good practice with my English.
That's cool. No problem.
So I don't know. Ask me anything.
Your attraction to him, and you said that there were changes that you're talking about, like changes in society, and I'm assuming you have an issue with it, and I address it, and I mean, and then JP addresses it. What are those changes?
Well, I got to Peterson following a lot of what was happening in the U.S. Lately. Well, 5 years or 6 ago.
What
So
made the Peterson attract you?
it what makes Pearson attractive to me is that he speaks things that in my culture here
Oh, what's your
in
culture?
we are in the Dominican Republic, I refer, in my context, the things that Pearson speak about masculinity, femininity, and the comments he makes in about political commentary and discourse seems pretty tame and simple, but in comparison to how people react in the US or Canada. Most of that from outside seems pretty tame as an intellectual, but I we are I'm seeing that from the outside. So it's pretty fascinating to me how people like Peterson and all the intellectuals that get lumped in the right wing category in the US mostly are in most part speak things that in in other places are still pretty tame to talk about and are not that controversial to speak about. So it's a pretty uh, a strange phenomenon that's happened, and I I felt attracted to what Peterson speaks about because I'm a Christian too, so that's pretty common here in the Dominican Republic still to be religious, to participate in religious communities. So in I'm not 100% on everything that Peterson speaks because
Yeah.
yeah, I obviously take him as a secular speaker first, then he and after that he engages in religion, but and pretty much of uh, most of his takes are pretty nuanced, more nuanced than most atheists and secularist speakers in the U.S. and Canada, but uh, really are pretty uh, outdated in terms of what the what is being taught or talked about in in academic circles of
One quick thing. So
biblical stories.
Peterson not being religious or particularly believing in God, regardless, you as a Christian was drawn to him, right?
Yes, because like I said, he was in the middle of a storm a few years back and in on the rise, speaking things that should not be controversial, but in the U.S. and Canada they are pretty controversial. So that was fascinating to me in many respects, and obviously I there's a lot of Pearson that I like, and I connect with the way that he speaks a lot because I'm an architect
Yeah.
by profession. So the way that he speaks, and a lot of people say that it's word salad, it's intellectual. He's a pseudo scientific
Yeah.
and all of that, but from an architectural standpoint and understanding, uh, I don't know how to put it, metaphors and figurative speech. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. That's pretty common when you are being educated in architecture, and
By the
the
way,
way that
quick question.
that Peterson speaks is pretty clear
Quick question.
for
If
me.
he spoke in a way in saying that he doesn't believe in God, would that matter to you?
That really doesn't matter to me. I think that,
It
for
sounds like it
example,
does matter to you because you're saying that.
ah, well, that matters to me
Okay.
in a sense that I I need to understand from where someone is coming from. But I mean that does not matter to judge him as a bad actor or something like that. For example,
I'm
I
not. I'm
think
not really following it. Matters or it doesn't matter.
it matters for understanding his worldview, but not to judging his character. I I don't judge someone badly
Okay.
because he's
Because it sounds like it mattered to you, where you just not be interested, but then you're saying, well, um,
no. I hear it from a lot of different type of intellectuals. I don't think that if I'm hearing, for example, uh, Sam Harris speak because
uh-huh.
he's atheist, I don't have to hear him. I just know that that comes with a worldview
I just
that
got a
I
sense that you listen to him as a Christian because he speaks in a way that's favorable towards Christianity.
I don't think that that's actually a
Okay,
big
okay. You
misunderstanding
mentioned it is why
because
I okay.
be, no, I think that a lot of I think that people get pretty wrong
I'm not.
about
I don't get why
Peterson.
you mentioned it
No,
if
no,
it doesn't matter.
I mentioned it because I wanted to set the stage of for what
Uh-huh.
for what I initially liked about him, and
Uh,
but at the same time, but I think that normally when when people hear that you mention that someone is agnostic, or you take notice that someone is atheist, etc. Some people think that you're talking about the character. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying that, and
Okay,
from
so
a
it doesn't
starting
matter if he
point,
says anything favorable towards Christianity. You just like the stuff he says.
yes.
Okay.
But what I wanted to say about that comment that you made is that
Kind of sound like you're backpedaling, but okay.
something that people get wrong about Pearson, and why he's liked in a lot of Christian circles, or
Yeah.
religious circles of many types, is because he he's feeling a void in the cultural conversation that people are having right now, that no no religious people could feel that void like he did, because most religious people that have the same kind of education or intellectual level that Peterson have, by virtue of being religious and being practitioners of their faith, were the people, um, the wider public did not let them participate in the discussions that Peterson had at the moment that he had them. uh, from the vantage point of being an initially being an agnostic atheist, like he said he was initially, he had that advantage to that people let him speak about religious issues without judging that he was promoting it, or he was, or thinking badly about him, that he was some kind of fundamentalist, or all the other things, that all the baggage that come, the baggage the all the baggage that comes with being a practitioner of X or Y faith.
You said a lot of religious folks, they're not as intellectual as him. You see him as a champion?
No, I said that there's intellectual there's religious intellectual people that could have filled that void that Pearson feel at that time, but he had the advantage of being of professing himself as an agnostic atheist, and people let him speak because of that. Normally, people shove uh, from all these culture wars, people shove any religious people out of it, because the it's always assumed that if you are religious, then you have some kind of confirmation bias and some kind of hidden agenda, or you are not that intellectual, or you are not that intelligent. But Peterson did not have that problem to come to talk about to fill that void of religion in the intellectual sphere.
Christian, this is really interesting. I love hearing your take here. I just wanted to say hello to any new listeners here on the app. You guys on YouTube, come join us on the Callin app. And anyone who is here, make sure you subscribe to the Pangburn Hangout. Either after the show or during the show. We have conversations scheduled for every day of the week here, so you'll be able to always come into an intellectual discussion like this every day of the week. It's a different host every day, and I'm typically here hanging out as well. So make sure you follow myself, Travis Pangburn, and Nivek, the host for today's program. And yeah, Nivek, you can go as long as you want, man. And I know you and I have had some conversations that have gone to like 4 a.m. before, but yeah, however long as you want to keep this conversation going,
Who was that?
feel free. What's that? Can't hear you, Nivek. Might just be me. Christian, are you?
No, I can't hear Nivek either. Have you guys talked yet about Jordan Peterson's statements about women, like that we are chaos dragons?
Well, we should get into that, but I want to get Nivek back because he's going to definitely want to chew on that one.
Oh, I didn't hear about the dragon part.
Actually, Juan and Masha, while Nivek's figuring out his thing, sure. Masha, do you want to actually read the quotes, or I don't know?
Oh yeah, I can go find
That would be cool.
Yeah, it was in his book Maps of Meaning. Let me just quickly try and find an actual quote. The dragon of chaos, quote unquote, is feminine. Jordan Peterson writes. Yeah, so I just have the one quote from him from the stage where he was asked about it. And apparently he just nods and goes, "Yeah, women are the dragon of chaos."
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Nivek,
No,
we
I
got
could
you.
actually.
Go ahead, Juan.
I think I could defend it a little.
What the heck?
Can I just say
And-
that I think like his worst takes are like often his best takes. Do you know what I mean? Because fuck yeah, we are.
Yeah, no, it's because actually he has a really, and I think I could probably link it if you're on the Discord, a really thorough explanation for why he thinks that women are chaos. And it's not an original thought like most of Peterson. Not to shoot at him, but
No, he steals from
mostly quotes
Camille
things.
Paglia like in
Oh,
a
he steals from
totally
a lot of people.
inveterate way. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. But he gets this from like just a stereotypical like Taoist religious point. And it's damn, you're making me draw on a blank here, but it's the idea that it's between chaos and order. You know, this like the Taoist like yin and yang type of thing. Somehow there would be no chaos if there was no order, and there would be no order if there was no chaos, right? Because if everything was order, there would be no such thing as chaos, and if everything was chaos, there would be no such thing as order. Blah 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 blah. And somehow one gives the more there is of one, the more contrast there is for the other to form upon.